Here is what happens to a Tyson bird at the processing plant. After slaughter, it goes into a communal chiller tank, a large shared pool of water treated with chlorine at concentrations the United States Department of Agriculture permits up to 50 parts per million. That chlorine is not there to clean each bird individually. It is there to slow the bacterial cross-contamination happening between hundreds of carcasses sitting in the same water at the same time. By the time the bird is pulled, packaged, and shipped, it has absorbed roughly 8% of its total final weight in that water. That is water you then pay for at chicken prices by the pound. Think about what that absorbed water does in your oven. You dry the bird, season it, put it in at high heat, and you want golden, crackling skin. Instead, the chiller water the bird has been holding since the processing plant begins working its way out through the meat under heat. The skin steams from the inside before it ever has a chance to dry out. You end up cutting into something pale and slightly soft, sitting in a gray liquid that has nothing to do with your cooking. Here is the part the packaging will never mention. The European Union banned this specific processing method for human consumption in 1997. What American shoppers are legally buying at full retail price today is a product European food safety regulators classified as unacceptable decades ago. That is not a technicality. That is a meaningful difference in what two regulatory systems decided was acceptable to sell. Tyson is also named as a primary defendant in ongoing federal poultry price-fixing lawsuits. Contract growers in the Tyson system are paid by the pound, a structure that creates a direct financial incentive to push every bird to maximum weight as fast as biologically possible. You are paying a brand premium. The processing method is one Europe rejected long ago. Number 5. Purdue Standard. Purdue does something very clever on the front of the package. It puts no antibiotics ever in clear, confident lettering. It communicates that you did your research. It is designed to. And to be fair, that claim matters. It is one genuine improvement. But the rest of the bird still tells a different story. The standard Purdue line still moves through the exact same communal water chiller as Tyson. Same shared tank. Same chlorinated bath. Same absorbed water weight. Same processing step the European Union prohibited in 1997. A premium was paid for one real improvement at the farm. Nothing changed at the plant. That is the most effective misdirection in the refrigerated aisle. One bold claim on the front of the package. Eyes go there first, and often stop there. The bird inside that premium label went through the same wet industrial steps as the cheapest option a few feet away on the same shelf. That is not what most shoppers think they are paying for. There is more context the front does not volunteer. Standard Purdue operations have been documented with as little as 0.8 square feet of space per chicken. Stress in high-density flocks directly correlates with elevated bacterial contamination on the meat, leaving those facilities. Purdue has also settled a federal class action lawsuit over claims connected to its humanely raised labeling, packaging designed to suggest the whole story matches that standard. The antibiotics claim holds up. The processing story does not. Number 4. Foster Farms. This is the regional brand. The one that does not feel like a faceless national corporation, because it was never positioned as one. West Coast shelves. Talking chicken commercials. California familiarity built into the packaging for decades. It reads like something different from the industrial giants. That is exactly what the branding is designed to communicate. Here is what the documented record shows. A 2025 Farm Forward report, drawing on 5 years of monthly United States Department of Agriculture inspection data, named Foster Farms among the brands whose plants routinely exceeded federal salmonella contamination thresholds. That finding does not stand alone. It sits on top of a regulatory history that food safety researchers have been tracking for more than a decade. One outbreak linked to Foster Farms sickened more than 600 people across 29 states. The detail that elevated that outbreak beyond a standard food safety event was this. The strain connected to the 2013 Foster Farms outbreak was resistant to multiple commonly prescribed antibiotics. When people got sick and went to a doctor, the first-line treatment did not work as expected. The infection was serious. The treatment was additionally compromised by resistance that traced back through the industrial supply chain. That is a different kind of food safety problem than most people think about when they are standing in the grocery aisle. During that outbreak, Foster Farms did not initiate a recall first. Costco independently pulled the product from its shelves before the company moved. In 2022, Foster Farms was acquired by private equity. The family reputation embedded in the branding is no longer what drives operational decisions. Investor returns are. The regional warmth on the label is real. The company behind it has structurally changed. The comfort the packaging communicates is doing a lot of work for a brand with that kind of documented history sitting behind it. Number 3. Pilgrim's Pride. Most people who eat Pilgrim's Pride have never selected it off a shelf. They consume it regularly without that choice ever being available to them. That is not a coincidence. It is the operating model. Pilgrim's Pride is one of the largest chicken processors in the country. Their business is not built around the retail shopper on a Sunday afternoon. It is built on volume supply contracts with buyers purchasing at a scale where individual package presentation is irrelevant. Fast food chains, frozen meal producers, school district food service, hospital cafeterias, the chicken strip in the kids' meal, the nuggets on the school lunch tray, the protein inside the frozen dinner that says nothing about where the chicken came from. A significant portion of all of that moves through a small group of mega processors. Pilgrim's Pride is consistently near the top of that list. When the primary customer is buying chicken by the truckload for a low-price menu item, the processing operation is engineered backward from that price point. Fast-growing breeds maximized for yield, water chilling as the default, line speeds that have increased steadily for years. The conditions federal regulators flagged as problematic are the same conditions the chicken moved through before it was frozen and shipped to a school. In 2020, Pilgrim's Pride pleaded guilty to federal price-fixing charges and paid a criminal fine of $17.9 million. The company is majority-owned by a Brazilian meat giant that carries its own documented history of corruption settlements. This is not a brand most people are actively choosing. It is a processing infrastructure that most people are already inside of, through products that carry no indication of where the protein actually came from. Number 2. Costco and Kroger rotisserie chickens. This one surprises more people than almost anything else on this list, because the rotisserie bird is positioned as the opposite of processed food. Whole chicken already cooked. Nothing hidden. You can see the entire product before you buy it. That presentation is the foundation of the appeal. Pick up the container and turn it around. Read the full ingredient list on a product that presents itself as a whole roasted chicken. That list on most major retail rotisserie birds includes water, salt, sodium phosphate, modified food starch, and, in some formulations, carrageenan. That injected solution represents as much as 10 to 15% of the bird total weight. It is precisely why the chicken stays moist and tender under a heat lamp for hours. A bird roasted at home under the same conditions would be dry in under an hour. The rotisserie bird maintains that texture because it is not the same product as a bird you roast in your own oven. It is a sodium and phosphate injected product being held at temperature under a lamp, and that is not what most people picture when they pick it up. The packaging layout is not accidental. Large clear type on the lid, whole chicken ingredient list on the side panel in noticeably smaller print. Consumer attention goes to the front. The injection is disclosed, but it is placed where most shoppers do not look. A single rotisserie bird from a major retailer can contain over 1,800 milligrams of sodium. That is more than 75% of the daily intake associated with heart health in one meal. Sodium phosphate consumed consistently over time has been linked in studies to kidney strain. Birds that do not sell by the end of the day are frequently stripped, repackaged, and returned to the case the following morning as prepared rotisserie chicken meat rather than being pulled from sale. The processed food aisle was not skipped. It was visited at a different counter in a whole bird format, with the processing disclosed on a panel most people never read. Number 1. Wayne Sanderson Farms. Most shoppers who recognize the Sanderson Farms name do not know that company no longer exists as an independent operation. Sanderson Farms merged with Wayne Farms to create Wayne Sanderson Farms, now one of the largest chicken producers in the United States. The brand identity people associate with a straightforward, traditional American poultry company is now the consumer-facing label on a much larger industrial operation. What makes this number 1 is not just what the company does, it is how publicly and aggressively it defended doing it. Before the merger, Sanderson Farms did not simply decline to pursue industry reform. They ran advertising campaigns specifically mocking antibiotic-free certification as unnecessary and misleading. While Tyson and Purdue were at minimum adjusting their public messaging and in many cases partially updating their practices, Sanderson Farms was producing ads, making the case that routine antibiotic use was the rational, responsible approach to raising chickens at scale. They were not quiet about it. They were the loudest voice defending the old model, while the rest of the industry was gradually moving away from it. The merger changed the name. It did not restructure the processing operation. Standard water chilling. Standard high-density confinement grow houses. Routine antibiotic use continuing under the new combined entity. Here is why that last point matters beyond the label. Routine antibiotic use at the farm level creates selection pressure for antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Those bacteria do not stay at the farm. They move through processing and travel on the meat into your kitchen. If resistant bacteria reach your body through food handling or consumption, the concern is not just a food safety incident in isolation. Research has shown it may affect how the body responds to antibiotic treatment for unrelated infections later. The antibiotic a doctor prescribes for a common illness may work less effectively, not because of overuse in a clinic, but because of routine prophylactic use inside a large-scale poultry operation you will never visit or see. Wayne Farms paid a $73 million settlement in the same federal price-fixing case that also named Tyson and Pilgrim's Pride. The combined company now controls a major share of the United States chicken market. Skin test in the oven. Next time you are in the poultry aisle, find 2 words on the front of the package before you look at anything else. Air-chilled. Those 2 words confirm the bird was never in a communal tank. You are not paying for absorbed water weight. The skin has a real chance of crisping the way you expect it to. Flip the package. If the ingredient list on a whole chicken includes anything beyond the word chicken, a needle entered that bird before the package closed. You are paying for whatever was in it by the pound at chicken prices. If the front says free range, ask whether the brand can show you pasture-raised with actual verification. Under current United States rules, those are not equivalent definitions. And if the brand can show you actual footage of the farm where the bird was raised, not an illustration, a real farm, that is the clearest signal that transparency is genuine. You now know what air-chilled means and why it changes what ends up in your pan. You know that water-chilled birds absorb communal tank water you pay for by the pound. You know that white striping is a documented muscle condition in fast-growth industrial breeds, not a natural quality variation. You know that saline injection is why a rotisserie bird stays moist under a lamp for hours, when a home-roasted bird would not. You know that no antibiotics ever is a farm-level claim that says nothing about processing. You know that free-range and pasture-raised are not the same definition. You know which companies pleaded guilty to federal price-fixing. You know which brands are still family-owned and which are now managed for private equity returns. And you know which processing method Europe prohibited in 1997 that is still standard practice in American poultry today. The industry built its model on one assumption: that you would not put these pieces together, that assumption no longer applies to you. If this changed how you shop next time, share it with someone who is still grabbing the default bag without a second look, and subscribe to Golden Menu for the next aisle. You went to the grocery store for protein. Clean, simple, reliable protein. You came home with something the label never fully explained. The gap between what you assumed you bought and what actually went into that package is wider than most people realize. Not because anyone broke a law, but because the rules were written in a way that makes the gap almost invisible from the front of the package. Welcome to Golden Menu. Today we are looking at 7 chicken brands that deserve a second look, then 4 that actually held up when we looked past the packaging. Once you know a few terms, the poultry aisle starts to look completely different. Air-chilled, water-chilled, woody breast, saline injection. Air-chilled means the bird was cooled with cold air after processing instead of floating through a communal water bath. Water-chilled means the opposite. Woody breast is a muscle condition tied to fast growth that leaves the meat hard, dense, and strangely resistant in the pan. Saline injection is the processing step where a solution is pushed into the bird before packaging so it can hold extra moisture and weight. Once you know those words, you cannot unsee them. If this kind of breakdown helps, tap like now and subscribe to Golden Menu. We turn food labels into plain language every week, so you can shop with more confidence and less guesswork. Number 7. Great value. Walk into almost any Walmart store in the country, and you will see the bright blue Great Value bag sitting there, like a simple answer. The price is low. The brand is familiar. The brain wants to stop thinking right there. That is exactly where the problem begins. Store brand chicken is built around one number, the lowest viable cost per pound on the shelf. To hit that number consistently, the supply chain depends on the fastest growing, highest yield industrial breeds available. Those birds are not selected for flavor, texture, or even a clean eating experience. They are selected for one thing: maximum weight in minimum time. That pressure shows up in the meat itself. The breast can look pale, almost translucent, with thin white lines running through the muscle. That pattern is called white striping. It is not a cosmetic quirk. It is a muscle damage pattern. A peer-reviewed study found at least mild white striping in over 95% of commercial breast fillets studied, and severe woody breast in nearly 12% of samples. That is what happens when a bird is bred to grow so fast that the muscle outruns its own blood supply and starts scarring itself. In practice, you season the breast, cook it right, cut into it, and it pushes back like a sponge. Pale, odorless, strangely resistant. You assume you made an error somewhere. You did not. That condition was built into the bird long before the package hit the shelf. There is another piece the bag will never tell you. Suppliers rotate. The store brand you buy this month may come from a completely different processing facility than the one from a few months ago. Same logo, same price. Potentially a different bird with a different processing history. You are paying for consistency. The label was never required to guarantee. One more thing. Lab research linked white striping to up to 224% higher fat content in affected fillets. So the lean protein on the nutrition label does not always reflect what is actually inside the package. Great value promised affordable family protein. What you often get is chicken shaped by maximum feed conversion and minimum cost, with visible tissue damage built into the result. Number 6. Tyson Standard. Tyson is everywhere. It is on nuggets. It is on rotisserie birds. It is in freezer cases. It is on school lunch trays. It is on a huge share of chicken sold in the United States. If you have bought chicken in this country, there is a good chance you have bought Tyson. That is why the brand matters so much. The name changed. The scale increased. The practices did not. Now that you know what to look out for, here are the options that actually held up. Before getting to the brands, 2 quick tests you can do right now with whatever is already in your refrigerator. The skin test. Pat the bird completely dry. Put it in the oven skin side up at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. One goal: crisp skin. A water-chilled bird works against you from the moment the oven closes. The absorbed tank water starts escaping through the meat before the skin can dry. It steams. It stays pale. It comes out soft and slightly leathery no matter how long it roasts. An air-chilled bird dries quickly, colors fast, and the skin cracks when you press or cut through it. If your bird will not crisp at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, that is not a technique problem. That is a processing problem. The label scan. 4 things to check on any package in your refrigerator right now. First, does the front say air-chilled? If it does not, assume communal water chilling. Second, on a whole bird, is the only ingredient the word chicken, or does the list include saline, sodium phosphate, natural flavoring, or modified food starch? Any of those mean an injection happened before the package sealed. You are paying for whatever was in it by the pound, at chicken prices. Third, does it say free range without also saying pasture raised? Under current United States rules, free range can be satisfied by a small exterior door on a standard confinement barn. The birds may never have used it. Free range and pasture raised are different regulatory definitions. They are not interchangeable. Fourth, can the brand show you actual footage of the farm where the bird was raised? Not an illustration, not a lifestyle photo. Verifiable footage of the real operation. If any of those 4 checks does not produce a clear answer, put the package back. Best option number 4, Smart Chicken Organic. Everything the communal water chiller represents, Smart Chicken eliminates at the processing level. Each bird is air-chilled individually. No shared tank. No chlorinated bath. No absorbed water weight. Each bird is suspended separately in cold circulating air until it reaches temperature. The cross-contamination pathway that defines water-chilled industrial processing cannot exist here, because the step that creates it was never part of this model. On top of that, the organic line is certified by the United States Department of Agriculture National Organic Program. The birds are fed a certified organic, non-GMO diet, never given antibiotics, hormones, or animal byproducts. The line is certified humane. The birds have access to outdoor pastures. The company is also audited regularly by state agriculture officials under the organic program. Roast 1, and the difference is immediate. The pan comes out nearly dry. The skin develops real amber color at high heat. The kitchen smells like a chicken is actually cooking, rather than the faint steamy smell that comes off a water-chilled bird in a hot oven. Smart Chicken was one of the first American brands to bring individual European-style air chilling into the mainstream United States market. Based in Nebraska, not folded into a multinational, the processing commitment and the farm-level commitment come in the same package. Best option number 3, Mary's Free Range. Everything the high-density confinement model produces, Mary's is structured around the opposite. These birds are genuinely free range, not a statutory exterior door on a confinement barn. Actual outdoor ground, soil, insects, grass, alongside their feed. That shows up in the meat. The birds are air-chilled. The ingredient list on a whole bird is just chicken. The company says nothing is added or injected into its fresh chicken. No preservatives, no added water, no antibiotics ever. The poultry is audited for certified humane standards and global animal partnership certification. The family business has been operating since 1954, and the 3rd generation of the Pittman family leads it today. Roast a Mary's drumstick at high heat, and the color is a deep reddish brown. The kind of result that used to be considered normal on roasted chicken and now genuinely surprises people who have only bought industrial birds for years. The flavor has density and specificity that is hard to describe until you have tasted it. Mary's also publishes product details and store locator information so you can verify where the chicken comes from. The transparency is part of how the model works. Nothing about this brand is trying to hide the bird behind processing language. Best option number 2, pasture bird. Pasture bird is the clearest answer if you want a chicken that actually lives outdoors, and if you want the label to mean what it sounds like it means. The birds are raised outside on pasture every single day of the year, where they can forage for grasses, bugs, seeds, and worms. They move to fresh pasture every single day. They are never given antibiotics or drugs. The company says nature is the partner, not the resource, and the entire operation is built around that idea. That kind of model does not create the same meat as a confinement bird. The breast has actual density. It resists the knife the way developed muscle tissue should. The fat renders golden, rather than the white or gray tone typical of birds that spent their lives in confinement. The color of rendered chicken fat is a reliable indicator of whether the animal developed over a realistic timeline or was pushed to maximum weight in a controlled environment. The birds are shipped frozen with full traceability to the specific farm of origin, not just the processing facility. The company can tell you where the bird came from, because the model was built to answer that question. That is a very different proposition from a bird that gets its identity from the processing line rather than the ground it actually lived on. Best option number 1, Bell & Evans. If one brand on this list represents what American poultry is capable of, when the company refuses to accept the industrial baseline, it is Bell & Evans. Bell & Evans did not add air chilling to its marketing because the term became useful recently. It built its entire processing infrastructure around individual air chilling long before the rest of the industry had any incentive to discuss it. No communal chlorinated tank, no absorbed water weight, no saline injection, no sodium phosphate. The ingredient list on a Bell & Evans whole chicken is one word: chicken. That is it. The company uses controlled atmosphere stunning prior to slaughter, a more humane method than the electrical water bath that is still standard across much of the industrial sector. It operates a dedicated organic feed mill and manages its own production from hatch to harvest. The company has been family-owned and operated since 1894, making it one of the oldest branded poultry companies in America. No private equity acquisition, no conglomerate merger, no quarterly earnings pressure quietly shifting priorities away from the product. Roast one and the results are specific and consistent. The skin shatters when you press it. The pan holds real golden rendered fat, not gray liquid from a chiller tank. The smell while it cooks is the smell of an actual roasted chicken, not the faint industrial steam that rises off a water-chilled bird in a hot oven. That is not nostalgia. It is the direct measurable result of not cutting the corners every brand above this one cut to reach their price point. Check your refrigerator. If you have Tyson, Perdue, Foster Farms, Pilgrim's Pride, Wayne Sanderson Farms, Great Value, or any store brand in there right now, run the 2 tests. Ingredient list on the side panel.